Howdy there, Young and Silver Mongoose here, back again for another episode of Gaming Favorites, where I and some guests talk about just something we love in the gaming industry, whether it's a system, a genre, a type of game, anything. And today I'm going to be talking about the SEGA Dreamcast. And I have two guests here. The first one is Kyle, aka Megasteakman. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay, not too bad. Just came off of working basically a solid month. Just flew in yesterday, but other than that, it's all good. And the other guest I have is Robman from the Happy Console Gamer Show. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing? Well, we just heard you just flew in. I'm sure your arms are tired, so you know. Um,
Uh, so, like I start all these things, basically I just like to go around the table and just talk about our earliest memories of the system. So um, I was thinking maybe just starting with yourself, Kyle, and maybe just talking to us about maybe the first time you heard about the Dreamcast and when you finally got yours, and then we'll chime in.
Yeah, well, did you guys get the demo units up here in Canada? Because I was in the States when I first heard of the Dreamcast.
so you mean the ones that were like in EB games where they'd have a little
Exactly.
process
Yeah.
setup? Yeah, we did. We did a little bit. There were a few. They weren't very widespread.
But yeah, I think it was an EB Games or GameStop or whatever the US equivalent was. And I remember seeing Sonic Adventure playing real time. Do you guys remember that game? It was
Oh,
incredible.
Oh,
such a great.
yeah. Now that you mention it, I think that there wasn't one at like an EB or GameStop or whatever near me because I was from a very small town and I didn't know that EB or GameStop existed until like I
So
don't
so
know, I
you were
went to
better off.
university. No,
You
no,
were
we
better.
did. Well, we had. I think it was either Kmart or Zellers.
Oh yeah.
So for the much younger people listening, they might not know what those are, or basically anyone who's not in Canada. Um, would probably not know, but it's kind of, I guess, like really cheaper, more dimly lit Walmart with
Yeah,
red instead of blue, basically. And they did have one there, but I'll talk about that during my bit.
Yeah, I just remember going into one of those places and hearing that it could move 1 million polygons at a time. I was like, "What is a polygon?" I had no idea, and now I hate polygons because I do visual effects all day. But it
They,
was so
they should have
impressive.
gotten you with that 132 bits, right? You would have understood that.
It was blast processing. I was totally in. But seeing it move, I remember, and then also seeing Soul Calibur. I mean, that game I think really was revolutionary to me for graphics in games. Of course, PC games have been cutting edge for a long time, but I remember Dreamcast really was a wow factor when I first saw it.
And did you like did were you one of these like early adopters? You saw that and you're like, Dreamcast is the future. I'm pre-ordering one right now.
Yeah, all my friends made fun of me for it, and I think they continued to make fun of me, but that just made the bond stronger. They all got like PlayStation. I got PlayStation 2 as well, but like they were like, I'm gonna hold out for the PlayStation 2. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm gonna be playing sweet games
I've been
and
playing Sonic Adventure for the hundredth
over and over,
time.
over and over, training up my choo choos or whatever. What are those things called?
Chows.
The chows. Yeah, I'm gonna be leveling up my chows.
I always
Yeah.
thought they were KOs. No, that
Oh
was
yeah, like Chaos Emeralds. That
like
makes sense.
Chaos Emerald, so they were KOs.
Yeah, I called them chows. I
They
don't
were
actually know which one is correct.
Sounds too much like a snack food.
they were stupid. Regardless, I actually.
Okay, if this is how this is starting, you have to go. Okay.
Oh, you like KOs? Chows? I don't even know what we're calling them anymore. I did
Don't
not like that.
don't pick on the chows, man.
It was such a ham-fisted way to use the VMU because the VMU was like touted as this amazing portable gaming device, right? It
Yeah.
was terrible. It was the worst. Mine
Oh,
corrupted like 8 times. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, just seeing Sonic Adventure just really blew me away.
So did you have to? I mean, because you were probably pretty young when that thing came out. It must have been quite the paper route you had to. Or was it like a Christmas gift or something? Or?
I worked at my parents' store as a janitor, and actually they drove me to Walmart, where I got mine on September 9th, 1999. I remember because like they released it on this crazy day in the States, and I was definitely an early adopter, and I bought it with I think there weren't that many games. I think I got Sonic Adventure. I was tempted to get Blue Stinger. I actually got that one much later on, but oh man, Blue Stinger! Have you guys played that game?
Oh, believe me, Johnny and I have played the ever-loving hell out of that.
It was flawed, but something really endearing about that game.
Oh, it's so good. Running around listening to Jolly Christmas music, kicking the crap out of monsters.
It was very anime, I remember.
While coins fly out of them. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah, that game was great. Oh yeah, Toy Commander. I'm not sure if that was a launch title, but I got Toy Commander really early on, and that was one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Rob, what was your first experience with the Dreamcast?
Well, it's funny because one of the first experiences I had was John and I went to an arcade and saw Power Stone, the arcade game. And now, seeing it, nice big news, just as the flat screen LCD monitors were coming out, super crisp picture. It was such an amazing looking game, and we just looked, this is just, wow. Wouldn't it be amazing to play that at home? And then word came out that the Dreamcast was going to be able to play that. It would be an early title for it, and we were just freaking out. But my first experience was going to Japan to visit my brother, and well before the launch in North America, and he had one from Japan, and so we went over there and I played Sega Rally, and I played Power Stone, and I believe I played some Sonic Adventure as well in Japan before it was here. And it was so cool sitting, my sister was staying in Ishikari, northern continent of Japan, for those that know it, in a little area just outside of Sapporo City. And we were sitting there in her living room with the game on. My brother was down from the village he was staying in, and we were all drinking beer and playing Dreamcast, and it was like, this is the future. I'm in Japan playing the cutting-edge system. Life could not possibly be better. And then he let me take it home with me. He's like, you know what? I've played a bunch of it. There's not a lot of games coming out that I want for a long time, so I'll get a North American one when they launch. Just want to take it home. And I almost crapped myself. And as soon as I got home, I went down to John's place, and I actually spent, I think, more of my spending money on stuff for John than I did on myself on that trip, just because I knew he couldn't go there and I was experiencing it. But I went to his place with this duffel bag full of tons of different stuff for him, and the Dreamcast stuck in the bottom. And when I popped that thing out, he also just freaked right out. And we hooked it up right away, and we started playing Power Stone. And we played that thing just all damn night. And so we were super excited about that. And that led to when the North American release was approaching, $99.99. And I remember I picked it up first thing in the morning. I went to EB at, for those that are local will know what this means, the EB Games at Lougheed Mall. This was before the SkyTrain went out there. I was working downtown Vancouver, living in a suburb called North Delta, and I had to pick this thing up from Lougheed Mall out in Burnaby Coquitlam area.
Oh, God.
And I had to do it all on buses. So I was at Lougheed Mall at 7 in the morning, and the staff at that store knew me so well, they actually opened the store at 7 a.m. and sold it to me before they were open.
There's a shortage, at least where I was from, of Dreamcast. Was there a shortage up here?
Oh, yeah, there was a shortage, and there was also the whole thing about whether you got one that had been manufactured in Japan or in China, because the ones in China would not read some of the games that had been released.
Yeah. I think there was a few of them, like I think Sonic Adventure and Blue Stinger specifically, where they were... Yep. I mean, some people just said that the discs were defective, but I haven't heard that the systems themselves were just...
It was actually because that same disc would work on one of the ones manufactured in Japan, but it did not work on the ones manufactured in China, because they had very hastily tried to swap it over to the North American / Japanese setup, and whatever the technical specs were, it glitched out and it wouldn't read certain discs. Mm-hmm. And so there was a mass returns of the system, which caused shortages because people were all trying to trade them in for ones that would bloody well work. But I luckily got a Japanese one, and I got the system, a memory card, a second controller, Blue Stinger, and Soul Calibur on the first day. And I've never done a game launch like that before. Like, I'd never done a system launch like that. I don't think I've ever done one since on launch day. But I walked in there and I picked that thing up, and then I had to go directly downtown Vancouver and let it sit on a desk next to me while I worked for an entire 8-hour workday, just staring at it, sweating. It's like, I want to play games. Games. And then I ran home, set the thing up, and popped in Soul Calibur, and that was it for the rest of the night. It was just, like Kyle said, such a revolutionary game. That game really showed what that system could do as a launch title. It was so unbelievable.
Yeah, when that game came out in Japan, I think I read that Sega's stocks went up 17% when Soul Calibur was released in Japan.
Jesus.
Just goes to show you. Yeah, but I could totally see like getting on board with that because I mean, in my opinion, like going from like the 64 gen, like the 64 and Saturn to like the Dreamcast, GameCube, etc. Like to me, that was like the last really big jump, you know.
I can see
so
that.
I can see that being so exciting that you would want to grab basically everything you could right out of the get go. Because like I was excited about the Wii and the 360, and I was excited about the Wii U and PS4 and all that kind of stuff, but not in the same way. And I don't think it's because I'm older. I think it's just because it's not as big of a jump, and the next systems are going to be even less of a jump, really.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I also now the Blue Stinger hype for me came from John. He had seen a demo of it on a trip to the States and told me about it. Right. While we were waiting for the North American launch. And he'd seen some guy in, I think it was it California he'd gone to? He'd gone somewhere in the States on a trip, and some guy had been to Japan and bought a Dreamcast and brought it back. Because I think he told me about this before I went on my trip. But I brought it back and had Blue Stinger, and had set it up at the local EB, but it was his personal one. I was letting people look at it back when EB was actually cool and not a bunch of corporate tool bags. So they'd let someone do that. And just demoing the game, and John watched the whole CG into it. And at the time, that intro was mind-blowingly good. And
I remember that.
Is that there's like the island exploding and something flies out, or it's been a while.
All of that, so he was really excited about it, and so that's why I picked it up on launch day. And I did end up playing all the way through it and enjoying it thoroughly. The same way that you enjoy 80s anime with that really bad dubbing. Mm-hmm. It really was horribly dubbed, but like Kyle said, there's a charm to it. There's this, unless you were there to experience it, I don't know if it translates as well nowadays, but there was something about it that was just so endearing and so fun.
Well, I played it in probably 2005. So at that point, it had already been pretty dated. I mean, I had played...
It was dated the day you played.
so in 2005, it was most definitely dated. Because, I mean, I had played, like, similar games. I think... when did... I had played, like, Resident Evil 2 and 3 and stuff at that point, I think. So...
And it came out way before that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a similar genre, I guess. Yeah. And I still enjoyed it. I don't know what it was. There was something charming about it, but I do remember getting to that, I guess, the Christmas Island or mall or whatever it is.
Yes.
And just being like, what the hell is going on? It was just so surreal.
There's some weird puzzles, too, like going to the fisherman's... I don't even recall what some of the plot points were, but they were just bizarre.
And going to the Pen Triathlon machines and getting the stickers or whatever they are.
Oh, my God. Oh, yes. I remember how they tried to tie in their other games for the launch.
Yeah.
Triathlon being like the most overlooked one ever.
And I did not beat it. I think I ended up getting to a part because there's 3 characters you can play between.
I think so.
There was
like dog and
dog. Where you change his t-shirts to give him kung fu moves or something. And there was a girl, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
no one remembers her name.
I never got to the point to get a 3rd character, but I enjoyed what I played because it was. I don't know. There was something about it, like especially that weird Christmas place, which my little brother and I, because I was playing it around and he would always come on and look. Like we always play that song like during Christmas. Like that's one of our Christmas songs.
Oh, same.
Yeah. And there was something also weird just about the fact that like I think you buy guns and ammunition like out of vending machines or something.
Yeah, vending machines definitely.
Yeah, and you drink the hassies to gain health or something. Like it was.
Now, having been in Japan just before that launched in America and seen vending machine culture at its peak, holy crap, did that ever make sense to me? Of course, you're going to buy your bazooka and bazooka shells out of a vending machine because Japan. That's why.
It seems like something out of RoboCop. Like
it does.
Yeah, but I did enjoy it, and that was actually if that was not in the first batch of games I got, it was very early on that I got that, and I enjoyed it, and I mean I'd perfectly understand if somebody saw it or played it, these days, and just being like, this is such crap. Like I'd rather play any Resident Evil game or Dino Crisis or anything.
The controls are so bad. I remember they're so broken that you can almost like fight around them.
Oh yeah. That's,
use it to your advantage.
That's the only way you can beat some of those big guys. It's just yeah. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. But yeah, I mean, your guys' stories are. I mean, yours, Kyle, is much more typical.
Yeah,
and yours, Rob, is just freaking awesome.
It's crazy.
It can't get any better than that. I can't even imagine just like that feeling of being in Japan and that's something you can't replicate now because now stuff basically launches worldwide. And like I said, it's not as exciting, the new gens, and just being with family there and everything, and then bringing one back.
I have to add to that story the fact that I don't think much of my parents and I certainly didn't spend much time very sober there either. See, between the beer vending machines, whiskey vending machines, yeah, those exist. Dude, yeah. If you haven't been able to go out down the street and just pick yourself up a nice bottle of whiskey out of a vending machine, you just haven't lived. It's
why talk to a person to get your alcohol?
They're just gonna card you and stuff. Like
I know.
For relaxing time, make it Centauri time. So they also had these places called Rocky Discount Liquor Stores. And by Grabthar's hammer, what a savings! It was insane. You could get like a 40-pounder of Crown Royal for like $20.
What?
Oh fuck yeah! So basically, my mornings consisted of coffee with Kahlua and Bailey's. That was barely any coffee. I eased my way into the beer vending machines throughout the day as we traveled around. When I got home, I cracked into my 40-pounder of Crown to have Crown and Coke. And then
because the vending machine won't judge you for drinking midday.
That's right. Plus, there's no public drinking laws, so you can drink wherever the fuck you want.
Oh, I'm living in the wrong country.
So, which leads to they don't abuse it there. That's the thing. But I mean,
what's the point?
The point is that when a bunch of gaijin like us go running in there, we think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and therefore their tourism goes up.
Yeah.
The only public drunkenness arrest they ever have is foreigners. So,
okay.
but I mean, I used to go nightly from my sister's place. There was about a 10-minute walk from her place. There was a shop called Lettuce Club. Now, most people would say Lettuce Club must be a vegetable market. No, it was an arcade.
Oh, of course.
Because Japan. And across the street was a beer vending machine, and I did smoke at the time, a cigarette vending machine. So I'd buy this little tiny pack. The cigarettes were maybe 2 inches long, and there were 6 of them in there. And they were called Hope cigarettes, and I'd buy a little pack of those. And I'd buy 3 tall tins of Sapporo Black Label Draft. And I'd sit down in the arcade across the way. They had ashtrays and cup holders built into all the machines. And I just crack a cold one, light up, and play some arcade games every night. It was horrible. Horrible experience that I definitely wish I hadn't done. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd want a gun vending machine right beside the liquor vending machine, especially with people like you running around,
And with Street Fighter, arcade cabinets, I'm sure the competition gets pretty fierce.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a story for another time about that. There were these 3 guys that came in, but I'll tell that another time when we talk about Street Fighter. It was kind of fun.
So my story for the Dreamcast is much less interesting. than that.
Thanks for prefacing it.
Well, I just, I should have went first. Like I said earlier, small town, right? So, and, people forget these days, there was no, internet. I didn't have subscription to any gaming magazines. So basically anything you heard was through the playground. And, I had a Genesis. I was a big supporter of the Genesis back in the day. Like you, Kyle, I was made fun of for having the Genesis. Everyone had the Super Nintendo, and I just had this big black box that put out these weird sounds. And then from then on, I got a 64 because I was at the age where your parents buy your systems for you. And there was multiple siblings. That system had multiple controllers. And I think they got it secondhand or something, so it seemed perfect, so they got that for us. And then I didn't even know the Saturn existed. I'd never seen it in the stores, never heard about it. So as far as I was concerned at that point, Sega was dead. I just thought they came out first. Again, I didn't know about the Master System because small town. They came out with the Genesis, so that was their one and only system, and then they were dead. And so to my surprise, one day I was at it was either a Kmart or a Zellers or something, and they had a demo system there with Sonic Adventure in the Chow Garden. So I picked up this weird controller with a hole in the middle, and was basically running in circles around one room because there weren't even any chows in there. There were just some eggs. So I picked up an egg and I threw it around, and I was like, well, it's in 3D, but...
Best game ever, 10 out of 10.
But I was like, I don't understand the appeal of this. I mean, I love Sonic. I had all the Sonic games. I played, Sonic Spinball even. But I didn't really see the appeal of running in circles in a room and throwing eggs. So
Still a better game than Sonic Unleashed.
And then... And also the controller was so weird to me because it had this hole in it. So I remember speaking to people. I was like, what is this all about? And they're like, oh, it's so you can buy a tiny TV and put it in there in case you don't have a TV at home and you could play the games on the controller. And I'm like, well, that sounds stupid.
See, this is why I loved the time before the internet. Because shit like that got circulated and believed. And now everyone just looks at their smartphone and dispels it right away. Damn you, internet, for taking away bad rumors.
It produces its own.
We laugh at the TV thing now, but what is a Wii U? Really, Dreamcast is the prototype of the Wii U.
And then also, I remember seeing the Dreamcast, and I think it might have been somebody who was at the store, and they're like, yeah, it connects to the internet. And I was like, why would you want a system that connects to the internet? And somehow I got this idea that the system was required to be hooked up to the internet for you to play anything. So I was like, okay, Sonic runs in a room and throws eggs. You play on a really tiny TV inside the controller, and you need to be connected to the internet, and it's like 1998 and I live in the country, so I'm going to be on dial-up for the rest of my life. This does not seem like a good idea. And then next thing I knew, it wasn't even in the stores anymore. So I completely forgot about it. And then take me some years down the road in high school, I was on like a local kind of Craigslist kind of thing, and someone was like, Sega Dreamcast for sale for $30. And I'm like, I think I remember those existing. Maybe I'll go buy that. So I went to this person's house, and she's like, yeah, my boyfriend left this piece of crap. Do you want it? I was like, yes, I will take that piece of crap for $30. And so this must have been like 2000, probably 2005. And I had literally known nothing about the Dreamcast other than the stuff I knew as a child and then the stuff now. And I think it came with Code Veronica, Rip-N Riders, Pen Pen Triathlon, and Toy Commander. And I think it came with one other one, but I'm not sure which one it is. And I remember just showing up to my girlfriend's house, and we were really big Resident Evil fans, and just dropping this system and being like, it's a Resident Evil game we've never heard of before, and it's on a system we've never heard of before. This is going to be awesome. And
it's got Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Oh, actually, I got a pretty funny Code Veronica story.
and I remember just being super impressed with this system. and just everything that I discovered about it. I'm like, whoa, the controllers, like the memory cards have like screens, like that's amazing. And okay, the ropes come out of the bottom, but you can put it in a little slot. That's so cool. Oh man, it can play CDs. Like this is like you have to understand. I was from a Nintendo era, so this was like I might have had a GameCube at that point, but like the GameCube didn't play CDs or anything, right? So everything that I kept discovering about this system just made me so excited about it, and I mean, not to get into too much of the games I played, but I mean, from then on, it was just getting more and more games over the years. And I do have a story about how I picked up a crap load of them, but I think right now I'm sitting at maybe 55 or so, and I mean, it's a very healthy library as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, my story is definitely not the same, but I mean, I think it all ended in the same place with the three of us being big fans of the Dreamcast, and and yeah, I have all the games like sitting beside the computer here, and I kind of want to just play them. So I'm going to end this call.
So see you guys.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did you guys play Code Veronica?
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it causing, like, to me, I just didn't know it existed, but apparently it was a really big deal because it was the first Resident Evil being developed for, like, the first game being developed for a non-Sony system, and then also I think it was the first one that had, like, non-static backgrounds as well.
Yeah, so. I think some of the backgrounds were three-dimensional. Like, there's some camera moves in that game, I remember. They weren't pre-rendered. Yeah, that one was exclusive. That was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Although it eventually come to the PS2, but
yeah,
and GameCube, and I think it might be on PC now as well.
Yeah, wherever they could put it, they just
It
was a good one though. I remember that game was really suspenseful, but it was kind of broken in a lot of ways. I think I'll tell you guys my story now. This is a big spoiler if you haven't played the game, so don't listen to me if you haven't played it. But you guys remember how your buddy, like, there's two people. I forget their names, but there's the girl and the boy.
Claire and Chris?
Claire Redfield and it wasn't Leon. What was the guy that looked like Leonardo DiCaprio? I can't remember.
That guy.
Steve Burnside.
Oh, there you go.
Steve to the rescue.
I don't know why, but like just before Steve gets mutagenized into the whatever beast, I gave him every single weapon I had. I just figured, like, he's like, I figured there's a fight coming on. Like, this guy, I'm gonna give him everything. So I had to beat that game with a knife.
Are you kidding me?
I beat the final boss with a knife. It took like a few hours.
Oh my god!
Why don't you just restart?
That's the thing. It's like I'd have to restart from the beginning because I didn't have progressive save files. I would have.
That was pretty far into the game. That was quite far into the game.
It was like right at the end.
Always progressive save files, especially with Resident Evil.
Well, they were so big. I think the VMU only had like a certain amount of blocks available.
Yeah.
And some games would just take up like 1 million blocks. And like Tony Hawk, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah. I have a couple VMUs that are exclusive to like one game, pretty much. So, like, I think Shenmue takes up 80 blocks, and there's I think 100 blocks on the VMU.
It's got to keep track of how many times you asked about that car. Like,
yeah.
What is Shenmue?
Do you know the language of Chinese? Do you know the language of Chinese?
Remember when that game was? I mean, that game was pretty cool, but like people were touting it as like, oh man, it's like you're playing a movie.
Dude, it's like playing real life. Okay, it's an experience.
I couldn't get into it. I really couldn't.
I couldn't either. I for two reasons. One, because I couldn't wrap my head around the concept of a real-time game where you had to be home by a certain time and you had to remember to phone people at certain times. Like, I can't do that in my normal life. How the fuck am I supposed to do that in a game? Followed by, I was walking around and there was this one guy who was completely drunk out of his mind and couldn't find his way home. And I felt so horrible that I didn't have the information from the game to know how to get him home. And he was freezing and he was cold and he wanted to go home and he was drunk. And I felt so guilty and horrible I couldn't go back to the game. I was like, "That's it. I can't get that guy home. I feel so horrible. I can't play this anymore.
It was a game that punished you. It punished you severely.
Wow.
It made me sad.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I'll just get my Shenmue stuff out of the way then. Uh,
You got some Shenmue issues.
I no, I absolutely adore Shenmue. I ended up getting it maybe a few. Geez, I don't know. Actually, it might have been like 5 years ago now. See, geez, time really flies. I think I mean, I'd always heard about Shenmue and how it was kind of. Um, I mean, it was kind of different and weird and huge, and I mean, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But then in the YouTube like gaming community, when that kind of started up, there was a lot of people who were really passionate about it, and I think John might have made a video
Oh, believe
about
me,
one.
he sure as hell did. That
Yeah.
game was his jam. When I didn't get into it, he couldn't wrap his head around that. He's like, "How are you not getting into this?" I'm like, "I can't get the game."
I want
I'm
to shoot
too
something.
into it. I'm
Let me
just
fight
into
that
it.
guy.
And he was like, "Fuck that guy. Who cares about that guy? Just keep looking around." I'm like, "But the guy's cold and he wants to go home." He's like, "Just don't worry about that. I can't play it." And so he just did. He never understood that. To this day, he will bug me about the fact that I never played through Shenmue.
Yeah.
He was a massive, massive, passionate guy about that. So yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think from people like Johnny and other YouTube people, I was like, you know what, like this kind of seems really amazing. So I ended up getting it online, getting my copy, and I was like, you know what, I really want to get into this and experience it. Like, it's not a game where I want to play, an hour here and an hour next week.
No, you wanted to live it. You dressed up as the character.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
started asking
basically,
people.
yeah. So I got a bunch of
Playing
clothes and a
soccer with
wig.
little kids.
I
that you found.
I put a Band-Aid on my face every day.
Put a kitten in a box and made sure to feed it properly.
Yeah. And so what I did was I saved it because I mean I'm one of these people that there's certain things that I just really want to get into and I have to immerse myself with. Like there's some movies like that, right? Like there's if I'm watching like Lord of the Rings, like I want to watch it like alone in the dark and just no one talk to me for like 2.5 hours, right? So I really wanted to get into Shenmue because I kind of wanted to share that experience that other people had that were super into it. So I waited until I graduated from university, and I took 2 weeks off. And every morning I would get out of bed a few hours before my girlfriend, and I would go and I'd play Shenmue, and then she'd wake up, and then I'd go along with my day, and then the next day I'd do the same thing, and I did that every day. I think I played 2 or 3 hours every morning until I beat the game a couple weeks later, and I was so immersed into it, and I did so to the point where like there's a lot of things in that game where you can screw up, and a normal gamer would just be, well, I'm just going to restart, right? But I was like, nope, I made my decision. This is real life. I'm going to move forward. And I was just...
real life.
Says the guy who couldn't play because he was too emotional about the man, the drunk guy.
It's just a game, okay? It brings up real world issues.
The guy was cold. Charlie, let's go home.
But no, I loved Shenmue, and I still think that it's, as far as I know, it's something that's still really unique. And I loved the second game, and I played through that, and I I also did some cassette tape props, which I made a video about, and I think I showed you that at one point, Rob.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were pretty awesome.
And thank you. And so I mean, other than me saying I think Shenmue is awesome, and it's really not for everybody. So look up some videos first if you're listening to this and thinking about getting Shenmue. But for the people that do love it, it's pretty much people aren't into it or they absolutely adore it. It's just one of those things.
And for the love of God, during the first day out in the town, find out where that fucking drunk guy lives. Please. Just get him home and tell me he's okay. Then maybe I can play it again.
I don't know who you're talking about. I must have just walked by and ignored him.
Yes, most people do. The forgotten men and women.
Totally callous. I agree that like games like Shenmue were what made the Dreamcast for me. You got the most bizarre games after like Seaman and Samba de Amigo, and what were some of the other ones? Choo Choo Rocket, I remember, was also pretty bizarre. Yeah. I loved that game.
Choo Choo Rocket was weird. Yeah,
they were so guarded about the same thing they'd done with the Saturn. They were so guarded about bringing over any JRPGs.
Yeah.
They really starved that system. Though it's the same with the Saturn, and that's what got to me because it was an amazing system, and it should have lasted and lived a lot longer than it did. I mean, just by the games image, like Space Channel 5, Choo Choo
Oh,
Bop.
yeah.
I mean, all these amazing, bizarre, quirky games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely one of its main strengths. It's a very Japanese system, and anyone who is has been somebody who's played games for a long time and remembers the differences, like when the gaming industry shifted to North America. And you remember, like, I feel that there's a loss in the entire industry, because I feel like it's really North American centric now. But the Dreamcast was just such a Japanese system. Like, you just get stuff on there that you wouldn't get anywhere else, right? And especially because SEGA is one of the people that made a lot of these games, and it was their system, so they could basically do whatever the hell they wanted, right? It was, a lot of those games were really fantastic. Whenever I was talking to Kyle about doing an episode, I was like, well, it's called Gaming Favorites. I, ask a guest something that they love and they want to talk about. And he's like, Space Channel 5.
Yeah, only Space Channel 5.
And I'm like, can we spread it out a little bit more than that? I don't know.
Space Channel 5, 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what I did. I'm repeating my own material. It's great.
If it's not ooh-la-la, you're done.
Yeah.
No ooh-la-la, no podcast. Sorry.
Oh, man.
I played the first one, and I actually only beat it recently. I remember, because I'm really bad at it, just absolutely terrible.
I feel like the beat detection was really off in that game at points.
Yeah, definitely. But
and the backgrounds did not match at all.
I never actually played it.
Oh, really?
I've never even put it in. I've never played it.
Do you own it?
No.
Okay.
I feel like a complete outsider in this conversation.
Wow. Okay.
I remember looking at the pictures and thinking, wow, she's hot and I like her outfit. But, I mean, that was the extent of my knowledge.
You're not wrong. That's half of the game. I think every level she has a costume change.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's more to look forward to, Rob.
I'm Robman and I endorse this game.
I didn't beat it until recently. Like I said, I was really bad at it, so I struggled to get to, I think, the second last level, because it's an arcade style game, right? So I think there's 5 stages, but those stages can be like 10 minutes long or something, and if you fail, you go back to the beginning of the stage.
It's challenging. It's very, very uncompromising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a friend over, and I don't remember why, but we got really drunk. And there must have been a vending machine outside or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we got really drunk, and then I was like, oh, you're good at music rhythm games? I stopped playing this game like 10 years ago. We should beat it right now.
He's doing it. He's starting to believe.
So she's actually really good at rhythm games, and she did the first few levels pretty well, and then she just started tanking. And I was like, okay, we should try the last level. After we saw Space Michael, because, I mean, that's like half the appeal of the game too, right? To see
Space Michael?
Yeah, Michael Jackson's in the game.
Yeah.
And,
oh, my.
And he's called Space Michael.
He's the president of outer space, I believe. Or, I don't know, maybe he's not. There is actually a president in the second game, but it's not Space.
So we saw Space Michael, and I'm like, you should try the last level. And she's like, okay. And I just basically kept making her try the last level until we beat it. And
nice.
I'm never going to probably touch that game again, just because I know I can never beat it.
You haven't played the second one then, huh?
No, because I think that only came out, that was like PS2, and then, is it on the 360 now?
Oh, yeah, that's where I got PS2. We can't talk about it then.
I heard that the hit detection was even more off on the PS2 version because it was a port.
Yeah, because it came with actually 1 and 2, I think, on PS2.
Oh.
But the second game was really solid. I think way better than the first. It actually had co-op as well. So one person would get the up, left, down, rights, and one person would get the choose.
Well, how am I supposed to pour drinks in other people's glasses?
Chew, chew, chew.
I
I've always wanted to do a sketch about the Where Are They Now, like the VH1 washed up rock stars about Ooh La La doing a lot of coke and like getting replaced by robotic reporters, and it would have been great. But the costumes are too crazy. I couldn't do the costumes.
No. You couldn't pull it off. You couldn't wear those heels.
Maybe lots of tinfoil. Yeah.
You'd have to get someone that looks like the lunch lady from The Simpsons. Oh yeah, I was huge back in the day, but they moved on to robots, and the drugs were so good. Well, what can I say?
It was space drugs.
Sounds like the bathroom of a truck stop, the floor of a truck stop bathroom. Oh my god. Yeah, it's not so bad.
Oh god, Kyle, do you remember Jaguar in that game?
Yeah, Jaguar.
He's like a competing network.
Everyone was competing with you. My God, I swear that game was like everyone's like, I'm gonna take your job. Or they're all reporters or cops or so much conflict. Yeah, it's crazy.
The future's not looking bright for reporters. Let me tell you.
No,
Is this where they got the multi-network fight from in Ron Burgundy?
Yeah, I think so.
It's basically that, but 1960s style space.
And they want to make out instead of fight.
Yeah.
But they fight, just to keep up appearances.
Yeah, definitely.
Dance fight.
Pretty much. So Space Channel 5, another great quirky game. I kind of feel like I'm being like a broken record here, but I just recently beat Seaman as well.
How do you beat that game?
Well, there's two ways. You take his advice and you help him to grow and learn until he can go free, or you take his advice until you're so depressed that you just end it all.
So you've both played it then?
I've played a little bit, but not enough to really understand it.
Okay, I feel like, Rob, you sound like you have some experience, so why don't you explain to the listeners what Seaman is?
Seaman was an interactive life simulation game narrated by Leonard Nimoy, God rest his soul, live long and prosper. You basically had a virtual aquarium into which several eggs were dropped, and if you cared for them properly, they would hatch into these little tiny fish with human faces. Yeah, that's creepy.
See, that's all I needed. I bought the game.
It came with a secondary VMU slot insert that had a microphone on it because you could talk to this game. So the first bit of the game was tickling and petting and playing with your fish. Yeah.
With a man's face.
And then of course talking to them, and they started off sounding like children, and they'd gibber a little bleep 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 at you. And you could only technically do so like about an hour session a day, and then you wouldn't be able to progress any farther anyway. That was it. So you're supposed to come back once a day, every day around the same time, and eventually the fish would grow up, and it would get down to the point where there was only one left, and it would start talking to you with a grown man's voice, and it would ask you very deep, probing questions about your personal life, and then you would answer, and it would give you advice and feedback based on them. This is some seriously trippy stuff. I mean,
what was all the advice? Buy more Dreamcast games.
No. It was much more like, it would swim up and go, so, I've been wondering, you're a boy, correct? And you'd say yes or no, and it would say, so, do you like girls or boys? And there's all these questions. That's very interesting. Well, I should be going now. And it would swim off.
Where's he going to go to? He's busy. He's got appointments to keep.
He's got to swim around and eat that goddamn fish food you chucked into Top Gal.
Which he will annoy you about if you don't feed him.
I'm hungry. Yeah, he would. I'm so hungry. And you had a separate terrarium full of these little caterpillar pods and eggs that you had to raise so that you could feed the caterpillars to the Seaman, but the caterpillars had human faces too.
Yeah.
Did they ask you questions like, why are you feeding me to this?
No, they didn't get to talk. They were just food.
Thank God.
Human faces.
This moral quandary, I don't know what to do. They're both talking human.
It was weird. And then eventually Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! For those that don't want it spoilered, stop listening now.
Space Michael shows up.
So, basically, if you got far enough, the big finale, because your Seaman would then slowly become amphibious, and then would turn into a frogman, and then eventually, if you did everything right, raised them right, took care of them right, talked to them enough, he would find a way to open up the backdrop of his terrarium and just release himself into the wild. And that was the end of the game.
Yeah.
It was, I think, the only way to say it, and pardon the profanity, but that was basically the one biggest mind fuck on the Sega Dreamcast. A fish with a human face that asks you a lot of personal questions and then abandons you.
I'm out.
Yeah.
That's narrated by Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny that the Seaman actually sounds eerily similar to George Takei.
He does. He does. I hadn't put that together, but yes, he does.
And
so,
man, the stuff he would ask you. I mean, I'm sure we all get asked different things, but I remember him asking me. He was like, "What did he say?" It's like, "So, do you think the world would be a better place if there was only one religion?" And I'm like, I can't answer that right now. He's like, "Yes or no." And I'm like, "But don't judge me. I can't deal with this." And this kind of stuff he would ask you, it was I was like, I'm glad I'm alone right now, because and I'm glad that the Dreamcast doesn't have a connection to the internet anymore, so this doesn't get sold to somebody.
I played that while I was living in Quesnel for 4 months, and for those that are curious, in British Columbia, there's a small town called Prince George, and there's a small town called Williams Lake. And in between those is a smelly little armpit of a town called Quesnel. And it was a lumber and logging town where the lumber industry had gone away. But I worked at the radio station writing commercials because life. And I played that game, but of course, being me and being completely alone up there, I would sit in my apartment over the weekend. And I would, yeah. And I would have the one session and talk to Seaman, and then I'd turn the game off, turn the system on, and set the clock forward or the calendar forward a day, and then do the next session, and then set it forward a day. So I'd do like 9 or 10 of these in a row, just talking to my Seaman.
You're my friend, Seaman. You never leave me, right?
I'm out of here, you sad, lonely, pathetic man. Hop, 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 good day. It was wonderful. It was a beautiful feeling.
He does spend a lot of time insulting you as he gets older. Like a lot.
He did. He was a right friggin' bastard. The number of times I'd smack him, because there's a smack button, and you'd smack him, he'd give you this dirty look, and you'd go, "Ouch, hey," and I was like, "Hey, you fucking take it. You fucking take it. You talk to me like that, little son of a bitch." Goddamn fish.
It's such an abusive relationship. Like,
and he also had a long tendril off his forehead with a suction cup on it. Let's not forget that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, which is used for a number of things.
Oh, yes, it is.
But this is a family-friendly podcast, so I don't think so.
Is it?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
that's
I'm kind of middle of the ground, you know.
You might have invited the wrong guest with me.
No, I'm sure people know what to expect of Robman by now.
Yeah.
Stuff like Seaman and just the how it had a microphone. There's another game I think that used that as well, but there was just peripherals out the yin yang in that console.
Yeah, because it was Alien Front Online that used it as well, and I think there might have been like some, like maybe Quake or some kind of other games, or I don't know, but
no, Phantasy Star Online was only typing. Believe me, I know.
Yeah, so there was the mouse, the keyboard, the VMUs of various types, the microphone, the fishing controller, the light gun, the arcade stick, the camera in Japan. Am I missing anything?
There's a Samba de Amigo maracas.
Oh, right. The Samba de Amigo maracas. There's probably more weird
Several light guns.
Yeah. Definitely several light guns.
They had a mech game too, like one of those piloting.
Oh,
they had like the full HUD.
That was for it's for one of those like robot fighting games. Tanagram.
Steel Battalion.
No. It was
Before that?
Virtual On, I think. Was that it?
Oh, virtual on a ratio. Yeah, virtual on a ratio tangram, and it had the 2 joysticks
Yeah,
on
yeah.
one controller. Yeah.
I'm sure it probably had like a steering wheel and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it was.
There's just so many one-offs, just like just for this game, like those maracas. I think I've tried Soul Calibur with them, and it didn't really work.
Yeah, yeah. You
was
can actually use the. I can't remember which game it was because one was debunked, but you can use the fishing controller, which has motion control, either for virtual tennis or for Soul Calibur. It's one of the two. I can't remember which one.
Virtual Tennis was a great game. Oh my god!
Yeah, I was actually playing that today because I was like, man, I haven't actually, other than Seaman and like the few games I've mentioned where I'm like, I just beat that recently. I haven't played most of the Dreamcast in a long time, so I was like, I should brush up on my Dreamcast stuff. So I was like, I popped in Virtua Tennis, and man, those animations are so good. Like that game, and a lot of games on the Dreamcast aged really well, and Virtua Tennis is definitely one of them.
Yeah, the controls are just so tight.
Yeah, it's solid, and I mean, I very rarely play a tennis game, but that's one I will play, like that and like Mario Tennis on the 64, and that's basically it. Um, that was definitely a good one. You did mention Samba de Amigo, which is one of the like few Dreamcast games that I still want, but have just like given up on because I know I'm never going to own it. So
Yeah, how rare is that game now? Because I did lose my entire Dreamcast and the collection. Yeah, did I tell you this? Oh my god,
Nope.
it's really a sad story. It's even sadder than the Seaman story.
Sadder than Seaman and Shenmue, and this is going down a dark hole.
Well, basically, I gave it to my friend to borrow to play Illbleed, and I said, you know what, take the whole box, and it had like all my Dreamcast stuff in there, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and games like that, and yeah, which was an amazingly fun game. But basically, he got a fast divorce with his wife. He left the house in like a hurry, and didn't get all of his belongings back, and so my Dreamcast was in his possession when that breakup happened, which was a brutal breakup, which I'm very sorry that happened.
It was probably caused by the Dreamcast.
The Dreamcast was too much power in one household, and it really drove them apart. Maybe it was Seaman was telling them conflicting bad relationship.
You're too attached.
So I lost my entire collection, and yeah, Illbleed I think is the thing I'm missing the most because that is my all-time favorite Dreamcast game for some reason.
Actually, that's another one where I've given up on because I think that one's actually kind of hard to find as well. But that's another like weird, quirky. That one and D2, I think is another one. All those games, Somebody Amigo, D2, and Illbleed are just like, I would love to have those, but I'm not paying like $100 or whatever the hell they go for a 20-year-old game. Like I can't do that. I'm not one of those guys. Yeah, so that breakup, did that happen like whenever I was in high school? So like, could I possibly own your Dreamcast?
I was thinking that when you meant that breakup, it's like, here's $30, just take it. I was like, that's fine.
Let me look at the bottom, see if Kial is written on it.
No, it happened way later. There's a bunch of games in there, like Phantasy Star Online, which is I think my first MMORP, whatever those, Morg that I've ever played. God, that game was pretty terrible though if you think about it. It was fun. It was like 4 levels. And it's like just the same 4 levels over.
Never say that around John.
Oh man, it was. I mean, I played the hell out of that game, but how disappointing is it if you look back and you're like, I just played the same 4 levels for like 80 hours. It's like grinding on 4 levels, just for that frying pan or whatever. And then if you died, some guy would also like try to bait you into some monsters and like steal your
shit.
Yeah, and then run off to another room. Oh my god! I remember I tracked down one guy who stole like one of those super rare items, and I actually, because there's like 100 rooms or whatever that you go into. We actually like found which one's open, which one's open. You probably go to that one, and then we found the guy and actually got him to give the item back. It was ridiculous. We kept going to room to room to room until we found.
See, I agree with you that it's not a great game. I actually played it on the GameCube. which I didn't play online, but I played 2-player with my brother, and I do own it on the Dreamcast. And I mean, looking back on it, it's not great now by any standards, but I am extremely jealous of anybody who played that online back in the day. Like,
You
insanely.
can't recreate it now.
No, you can't. You can't recreate that feeling. And I love like hearing stories about people playing that game because it's like that was the cusp. Like that was the brink of this kind of stuff. Like it was the forerunner. Like Dreamcast was a forerunner for so many things, and that was for a lot of people like you. It was their first massive multiplayer online game, and it was on a freaking console, and you can type to each other and stuff, and it was it was something else. And I'm of like my quote unquote, I guess, gaming regrets or whatever. Like one of them is not being able to play that game back in the day. It was. I just feel like I missed out on like that was like you said, you can't recreate it. I mean, you can still play it online now. I think through I think it's called Blue Burst or something. You can play online like on your computer, but I mean it's not the same. It's not the same.
I think that was one of the more card-based ones too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
I don't remember the mechanics on that one. No.
No. Yeah, I tried actually really hard a couple of years ago to hook up my Dreamcast like to online. Like I was going with because I think it was Chipsters. I think made a video on it, and I was like, I could totally do that. And I think I tried for an entire weekend, like solidly. And I had to go to the dollar store to buy a CDR, and I had to burn all the weird things, and then I had to sign up to get a free internet connection, like that used dial-up, and then like get the cord and hook it up. And then I think honestly, what it comes down to is like dial-up providers in Canada. There's like one provider pretty much. There's a few providers, but they're all under like one, and you can't do it with that provider. And I was just like, it was the most frustrating weekend of my life. Like, forget finals and university.
The servers are probably down. Like I remember going on to
no, there's personal servers though that you can go on.
Oh, there are?
Yeah, people are still playing on their Dreamcast Phantasy Star Online.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true because I heard that they still make games for it in Germany. Like developers actually still develop Dreamcast games.
And Japan, a bit.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's a system. How old is the system? It's like
It was
15 years old.
It was 98 in Japan. Yeah, so
That's nuts. It's a very good system, but I mean, why not just PC? I don't know.
well,
it's kind of crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of Dreamcast fans that are, as the word implies, they're fanatic. They're fanatical about the Dreamcast, and they will just not let it go. and it's from what I understand, as far as developing systems, like for systems go, like it's probably one of the easiest ones you can do it on because there was like no protection on the Dreamcast, right? You can throw any burned disc in there and it'll play, and the fan base is out there. Like you can go to a convention and sell 100 copies of your new shoot 'em up, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the Dreamcast. If you try to
It's
do
guaranteed
that,
to play.
yeah, it's guaranteed to play. People are probably going to be into it. And if you did that with most other systems, you try to do that with the PS2, people will be like, I don't really care. Why isn't this on PC, like you said? But for Dreamcast, like Dreamcast just holds such a special place in a lot of people's hearts that I think that's the reason. I never got into any of those, like even burning. The only thing I have burnt for my Dreamcast is I have an Atari emulator, which is interesting.
Yeah, the emulators was so weird that you could get emulators for the Dreamcast. That so blows my mind.
Yeah, and so that's the only thing I have burned, and I've been tempted to try to get Half-Life to work on there, because it was originally I think the game was completed, and it was never released, and but other than that, I haven't burned anything because the way I look at it, I'm like, I have like 60 Dreamcast games, and I haven't played through like more than half of them. So why would I go and burn copies of other games? And oh look, now I have 300 games I need to play. So
speaking of which, Steam sale today. So get those games you're never gonna play.
Oh crap! I had something I was going to say. Now I can't remember it.
Something about burning.
Bleemcast. You guys remember Bleemcast?
I remember reading about it later. But
Okay, Bleem was a emulation software that was released that let you play PS1 games with better graphics on PCs. And then later,
yeah, I do remember this. Yeah,
somebody made Dreamcast, the same guys, and it was Bleem. So you'd put this Dreamcast disc into your Dreamcast, and it would boot up, and then you could open the top, take it out, and put in almost. I do believe there were limitations, but you could put in almost any PS1 game, and it would make the graphics look so much better. It would smooth out the rendering and make the animation smoother. It was just so crazy. But it's just when you mentioned emulation on that system, I remembered that, yeah, you could play PS1 games on it if you had that disc.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that. That was really cool. I did try that out. Yeah.
I think, now that you mention it, I did actually burn a Dreamcast disc, and I think I only ended up getting one game to work, and it didn't...
Yeah, it was really hit and miss.
It didn't, like, I think it crashed after, like, 15 minutes or something, but it looked so damn good. I was like, why?
Best 15 minutes ever.
Yeah. Yeah. But did you get into, like, the emulators or burning, like, indie games or anything like that, you guys?
John and I got into the actual just buying burnt copies of games because we had no jobs and no responsibilities and thus no money. So for us, it was this double-edged sword because we could go out and get tons of these games and play them, but then we were so jaded and they cost so little that we didn't care to actually finish them. So that whole childhood thing of you only get like one game a year, so you better get your use out of it, died instantly. Just flatline. Because we'd go out and go like, yeah, I'll take those 50 games. Here's $20. Mm-hmm. And you just throw the discs in. And
you put it in like 5 minutes bored. New game, 5 minutes bored. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. That was us.
Yeah, no, I totally get that mentality because.
And then we go back to Street Fighter Alpha.
I remember that point in my life where I had more games than I could play. And then I started enjoying, games less. And that's why another reason I never got into emulation. I think the only stuff I ever emulated... I used to emulate, GBA and stuff like that way back in the day. But I realized the same as you guys. I was like, you know what? Like, I would play a game for 15 minutes or something. And it's not the same as, you know what? I only have 2 games on my 64, and I'm going to play the crap out of them. It's not... It's one of those things that, like, now that you're older, you're like, I could replicate that, but why would I restrict myself? It doesn't make any sense. But, yeah, it's something that's definitely lost, so I can totally understand that double-edged sword you have going on.
Yeah.
There's just so many games now. Like, if you think about just, like, earlier gaming, you'd have to... There weren't, like, a used game market. I think Dreamcast and PlayStation 1, I think that's when I started seeing some kind of used games. But I mean, really early stuff, I remember having to rent it from a video store of all places. Those don't really exist now. There's even a service for a while that was like Netflix, where they would ship you discs of games and you could send it back. But yeah, there's something that happened with, like, once games went from cartridges, which are a very expensive medium, to discs. Just like an explosion of cheap production on there's a ton of PlayStation games. I'd never seen such a library of games. And Dreamcast, I feel like the library was somewhat limited, and I don't know why that was. It didn't feel like there was as many. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like, are there a lot of? It seemed like the library wasn't nearly what it was on Nintendo systems and Sony systems.
A lot of developers abandoned quickly when they found out how easy it was to pirate, because piracy was another nail in the coffin for the Sega consoles and for that hardware, very specifically. Because no one wants to put all that time and effort into making a game that they know within 3 days of launch people are going to be getting for $5 from some skeezy douchebag down the road with a joint in his mouth. So... that people stopped wanting to develop. So yeah, it was a much smaller catalog because they saw what was in the wind. Whereas, I mean, for a PS1 to do that, to be able to play copy games, you did have to actually have a chip installed that modded your system. And after a while, if you had that mod chip, you were forced, which was kind of stupid of them, you were forced to pirate games, because if a genuine game, they wrote code that would look for that chip, if it found it, would not play on your console. So you went out and genuinely spent your $70 on this game, so you wanted to support them, but because you had a modded console, now you can't play it. So you have to go buy a pirated version. But you had to take your machine to a guy and trust him to not fuck it up while he put this illegal chip in it. And the same thing with the PS2 and with a lot of the other systems was the Dreamcast. It started with a boot disc. You get this boot disc, and if you put that in, it just fast tracks the copy protect. You can put any region of game, you can put any copied game, anything you want in there. So it was just ridiculously simple, and unfortunately scared off third-party developers.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there was... I was looking at a list of, like, canceled Dreamcast games today, and it's ridiculous, like, the amount of amazing stuff that was going to come out. Even stuff, like, that was Sega developed. I mean, Sega, also knew there wasn't much of a point because they weren't making a lot of sales. And there was so much stuff, like... that ended up just being ported somewhere else or finished somewhere else, like Shinobi and Toe Jam and Earl 3, Gun Valkyrie, Jet Set Radio 2, which I think turned into Future on the Xbox. I think they were going to make another...
Xbox. The Xbox was they were buddies.
Yeah, and I think there was another Knights game that was supposed to come out. There was, just a ridiculous amount of amazing things. And I've heard some people say that, like, well, maybe if they would have just stuck it out, like, a bit longer, then, and released those, like, amazing games, and it still would have worked. But I mean, there were so many factors that went into its failure that I don't think that would have really helped. And a lot of those games ended up coming out anyways, so. But there's a few games that came out afterwards that just felt so much like Dreamcast games, like... Monkey Ball is one. And,
right, yeah. That one does feel a lot like...
And Billy Hatcher. I don't know if you played Billy Hatcher.
No.
It's on GameCube, and there's mixed pieces of information, but some people say it was made on the Sonic Adventure 2 engine, so maybe that's why it feels that way, but I was playing that, and I was like, this feels like a Dreamcast game. And Monkey Ball, like, most definitely. I mean, it was a Naomi Cat game, so... originally, so it was, definitely... It probably would have come out on the Dreamcast, like, inevitably.
One of my wife's favorite GameCube games of all time.
Oh, it's so damn good.
How frustrating.
More so the second one.
Gosh, that game made me scream more. It's like Marble Madness all over again. It makes you want to throw up.
Except instead of a roller control, you had to tilt the damn stage.
Yeah.
Vicious and cruel.
Oh my god, those monkeys!
And
I swear that Deadly Premonition. I swear that was a Dreamcast game. It had to start its development as a Dreamcast game. You guys played that one?
Yes. Oh god. No. Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, the controls of terror. I listened to a buddy of mine who learned how to cheat the car so you can make it do the fastest drive possible by toggling between the brake and accelerate button somehow. So you get that thing going like Mach 3 everywhere he went.
That's brilliant because that game is so fun. It's like so broken. It's fun.
Hey, can you remind me what that? I mean,
it's kind of like Silent Hill mixed with film noir.
It's Twin Peaks. The
game.
Yeah. It's not somebody like. I think that someone told me that the Comet was put in after they had made the game, which makes a lot of sense. It's about this investigator trying to uncover this. It's a small town. There's a murder, kind of like Twin Peaks, but there's a supernatural element, kind of like Twin Peaks. It's Twin Peaks, the game.
Okay. Is it okay? It kind of makes me think of Indigo Prophecy. Is it similar to that? Maybe? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. I'll look it up later.
You need to play this game because or just look at the cutscenes because they're so full of flavor and they're that zany Dreamcast zest to them. They're just so much fun to watch.
They did do a Deadly Premonition director's cut that came out on, I believe, the PS3 and the Xbox 360.
It's on Steam. I think I got it for like $2, and I think I grossly overpaid for it.
for the director's cut?
No, yeah, for the director's cut. It's actually well worth the money. It's not a good game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's so unique. And I'll never forget some of the things that put me through, like that squirrel key. I was rolling on the floor laughing. Did you get to that part?
Oh no, I've never played it. I lent it to my buddy before I could play it, and then I never got around to it.
I'm not going to ruin it for you guys though, because the squirrel key, when that happens,
Like you're saying
yourself.
squirrel, like those.
Yeah,
like the animal,
like Resident Evil. When Resident Evil, they'd be like, "Oh, this is the whatever snake viper key," or I don't know. They had blue key cards, but they also had like weird animals and stuff. They knock on that so well, where you have to find the squirrel key, and you find it, but that's not the end of the story.
Awesome. I can't. Okay, don't tell me anymore. I'm gonna la. Oh my god. I have to play that later now. I think that's on my list now for the next survival horror game to play.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've been playing. Oh, sorry. We should get back on the Dreamcast games. I was going to talk about Evil Within. I just can't bring myself to play it because it's not as fun as some of these other ones. I don't know. I can't get into Evil Within. I don't know what it is. I
streamed it once, and the only thing memorable about it for me was that with the bad guys, if you don't immolate them or in some way make sure they're incapacitated, they'll get back up and come after you later. I was stomping on this one guy, and his head popped. And there's this green goop that you can find in jars that you take to the psychotropic otherworld, where you can put it into this machine that injects stuff into your spine to give you more powers. And I kept calling it brain juice.
Yeah,
and then I found out you stomp over the zombies, his head pops, and that's what pours out. And then you take a jar and scoop it the hell up.
Why would you put that in your body?
Because powers. So
it's a hell of a drug.
I'm playing this game, and this, just after I've done this, another one of these zombie guys with the barbed wire wrapped around his head comes over to me with his little twitchy, whatever the hell he's doing. So I shoot him a couple of times. He falls down, and I start stomping on him. He's on this slight hill. And I'm streaming and commentating while I'm doing this. And I start stomping on him, waiting for his head to pop. And instead, he's just slowly sliding down this hill he's on, leaving a bloody red streak all the way down, while I continue to stomp and laugh maniacally like I'm completely out of my mind.
Well, and you end up being the monster in those games, I feel like.
I was on the floor rolling around, laughing with tears coming out of my eyes as I continued to stomp at this thing and scream the words brain juice over and over for 10 minutes. It was one of the best nights of my life.
Yep, that was a good... I think I was at that stream. That was a good time. I remember the brain juice.
There was a few horror games on that system, like D2, which I actually never played that one, but
it looks really interesting. I really want to play it. I actually, you know what? I'll just burn that one. That's one I'll burn. I'd burn that because I don't want to pay a ridiculous amount of money for it. But
how much is that one going for these days?
I don't know. I stopped paying attention to prices of Dreamcast stuff because, like, I look at my library of, like I said, 50 to 60 games, and there's only probably 5 more that I want. Like the ones that we mentioned, I think Floygan Bros is one, and a couple other ones.
There was recently a little-known game on the Dreamcast based on an incredibly little-known in North America movie called The City of Lost Children, which was an early Ron Perlman film.
They made a game out of that movie?
Yes, on the Dreamcast.
What?
Yeah. Is that fucked up or what?
What would you do besides mope and...
You're the little girl that's trying to save all her friends.
What game is this?
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, there's a game based off of a very surrealistic movie made by a French director. He did City of Lost Children. He did a movie called Delicatessen, and he was also the guy who directed, he did one called Stiletto, and then he directed Alien 4, the Alien Resurrection.
And Amelie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
he's good.
And in almost all of his movies, he has Ron Perlman, and he also has that little guy, I can't remember his name, but the little guy in Alien Resurrection that was in the wheelchair. That guy's in almost every one of his films, too. But City of Lost Children was about this scientist who no longer could dream. And he's ancient, he's extended his life through science, it's French. And he's kidnapping all of these children. He's getting these little minion fellows that are all clones of that little guy to go out into the city at night and steal children and lock them in these machines so that he could steal their dreams. Yeah. That's the premise of the film.
Seems logical. I'd do the same thing.
Ron Perlman plays a strong man with a traveling circus who befriends the little girl who wants to get all her friends back. It's a really bizarre movie. And the fact that they made a video game out of it, just the what factor on that is insane.
Yeah, what was the pitch session like on that one?
I couldn't even begin to imagine. Hey, who wants to take a surreal, obscure French film and turn it into a game? Okay.
You know what the kids like? French surrealism.
Hey, shut up and take my money. I mean,
So which game is this? Sorry.
City of Lost Children. I'm pretty sure it made it to Dreamcast.
Okay.
Oh my god.
That's Yeah, I can't say I've heard of that one.
That just reminds me of when they used to have tie-ins all the time for Super Nintendo, like the Charles Barkley game.
Yeah.
Or Michael Jordan game. What was it? The Chaos in the Windy City, and Shaq Fu and stuff. Is like, well, it's popular. Let's make it into a video game.
Oh, my mistake. I'm just looking it up now. It was, a matter of fact, it was a PlayStation game, not. It was on DOS.
Cut all that section out. Cut it out.
My bad. My bad.
But kind
I'm
of
certain. I probably played it on Dreamcast. That'll be why.
to bring it back, though, what you're mentioning, there was a lot of really funny tie-ins with the Dreamcast. Like, we've mentioned Space Michael, and there was Leonard Nimoy with Seaman, and do you guys know about
that's about it. That's actually about it, actually.
Do you know
Leonardo DiCaprio in Resident Evil Code Veronica?
Yeah, no, there's
Yes.
have you guys played Omicron, the Nomad Soul?
No.
No, but I remember hearing about it.
It's I haven't played it, but I had a friend, whenever he heard I bought Dreamcast, he's like, this is the one game you have to buy. It's amazing. And from what I can tell, it's like an action-adventure game, but also goes to first-person shooting, and also goes to fighting sometimes, and it's like a futuristic kind of world, but it's one of the main characters in it is David Bowie, and he wrote like most of the soundtrack as well.
Damn!
Like, he's on the cover of the game.
That's pretty badass.
And I'm like, this is only on the Dreamcast. I know they have tie-ins like, a lot nowadays with like people doing voice acting, but it's not like Leonard Nimoy was pretending to be someone else. David Bowie was not pretending to be someone else. Space Michael was Space Michael. They're just like, yeah, I'm Michael Jackson in the game. What are you gonna do?
Michael.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's frightening and horrifying. Space Michael. Don't let him be
I think
after children.
he actually has a bigger role on Space Channel 5 Part 2, so look forward to that.
Oh God,
one.
does he? Well, I have to get that game now.
It's actually much improved. I'd say number 2 is way better.
So for Samba de Amigo, did you connect it online to get that sweet on-disc DLC?
Oh yeah. It was amazing. You had to go online to unlock something that was already on the disc because the bandwidth, they didn't want you to download. Like, where would you even store it? On your VMU, which is probably like a floppy disk worth of storage.
Yeah, if that. Yeah, but it's funny because whenever they were like making the Dreamcast, they were touting it to be like the internet to be like so amazing. Like, yeah, you'll be able to download whole new levels for Sonic Adventure.
Yeah,
and there's going to be 6 billion players, even though there's only 7 billion people on Earth.
Yeah,
well, I think
Peter Molyneux. Okay, everyone pulls a Peter Molyneux once in a while.
Yeah,
he pulls them all the time. That's why it's called pulling a Peter Molyneux. But
I think actually
in Fable you will be able to watch trees grow, and whenever you take a piss on the ground, it will stay there, and the grass will die. It's the most amazing game ever. Well, okay, no, actually, you can just do like some things. Like if you eat too much, you get fat. That's all we got.
Your Peter Moore sounds a lot like Strong Bad.
No, not Peter Moore. Peter Molyneux.
Oh, Peter Molyneux.
The guy who made Black and White. The guy who made
Yeah.
He promised the world and gave you a popcorn fart. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
He was great for promising a million things and delivering very little. So so they did it too.
I think they actually got in trouble for that because I think that was like their. I think like It's Thinking was our tagline. And then I think in PAL regions, the up to 6 billion players was their tagline, and some organization was like, you can't say that. That's not possible. That's against, certain regulations. You can't just lie like that.
Yeah, not everyone's connected to the internet, yeah.
It's funny, I was playing Crazy Taxi today, and I realized that I'd never heard a song other than that one Offspring song because that's the one that I liked so much. So if I started the level and didn't have that song, I would just reset until I had the one. I can't remember which one it is. All I Want. That's basically all I listen to.
Is it the one that goes, yeah?
Yeah. That's the one. I would just listen to that one over and over. That's a great game too. The second, I feel like they got progressively worse, but the first one was pretty
number
awesome.
2 with the jump dynamic and the different city. Ugh,
Yeah,
I don't know.
it was the city that killed it for me. It's
Yeah.
just weird.
Although great iPad and whatever mobile game, the Crazy Taxi mobile game is actually really cool.
Huh. I'll keep that in mind.
So, yeah, if I want to, maybe I'll just shoot off a few of my favorite games. We'll just go around the table and do that, and we can do that to finish up. You mentioned Toy Commander earlier, and I actually really like Toy Commander. House of the Dead games is really awesome. Shenmue, obviously, Space Channel 5. Like, basically anything that SEGA developed, like, I pretty much love all of it. Like, Echo the Dolphin, I don't know if you guys played that one.
Oh, God.
It's significantly better than its predecessors. It's like a real game. You can actually do stuff.
Is that what they put on the box? It's like a real game.
Now with real gameplay. So that was one I really enjoyed, and that's another one actually that holds up really well. Like the animation and graphics I still think look great. And Soul Calibur, obviously. Dead or Alive 2, we didn't mention, but that was my first Dead or Alive game, and
Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle.
I still play that game, and the Sonic games we haven't mentioned either. I don't know if you guys were into the Sonic games.
Adventure.
Did we? Well, we talked about chows. That's it.
No, you talked about the room where you run around and throw eggs. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty much the highlight of that game.
That's pretty much it.
Sonic Adventure 2, there's like 3 rooms you could throw eggs around. So
it was one room too many. They should have stuck with just having one or two.
Yeah, and the downfall of Sonic Adventure 1 was that every once in a while Big the Cat would walk in and you had to punch him in the face. Other than that, everything's fine.
I liked those fishing levels. I think everyone else just sucked at them, and that's why I didn't.
And you know what's funny? Somewhere at Sega headquarters, a light just went off on their desk saying, "Oh my God! We finally had someone admit they like those levels. Oh, we are saved.
We're sitting on gold, gentlemen. Let's roll out the mobile app."
So now they're about to make Big the Cat Fishing Adventures for every platform.
Yeah,
I think he was voiced by the Duke Nukem guy, wasn't he? I think he was.
What?
Yeah, Big the Cat.
He was voiced by Duke Nukem?
Well, the guy who voices Duke Nukem. Duke Nukem's not a real man. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
I'm to catch fish and chew bubblegum. And goddammit, I'm all out of bubblegum.
If I'm wrong, I'm going to cut this part out to avoid embarrassment. But I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
You may not.
The people need to know. Even if it's a lie, people need to know.
Big Nukem.
You guys aren't recording, so...
Goddamn Robotnik bastard, shut up my ride.
It's basically, this is just going to be edited out to just be, basically, I'm going to say something, and then I'm just going to edit you guys laughing in behind it. And that's all it's going to be for like 40 minutes.
This whole podcast is just going to be completely scrapped for a laugh track.
That'd be awesome.
So, what was maybe your favorite games on there, Rob? The ones that really stand out?
You know, of all of them, for me, the top favorite has got to be Evolution. Shut up, John. Shut up. I know if you're listening right now, shut up. It was a good game. I don't care if it was randomly generated dungeons. Shut up.
Hey, I like Elemental Gimmick Gear, so, you know.
Okay. That was Jason and not me. He bugs me about Egg all the damn time. He bugs me about that game. He's like, yeah, you love Egg. It's the best game ever. But no, okay, that was Jason. Me. I do love Evolution. I got both of them. And I love the idea of this like ancient tech and the fact that your main character has what amounts to a Swiss Army knife with a giant hand in it on his back that he uses to punch and slap enemies. There is just nothing bad about that.
How long are those? Because I own them both. I just haven't gotten into them.
Not super long. Yeah, probably about your average 40 hours if you're going to do all the everything. So, not bad. Really fun. Really love the art style. The music is so good. I love those games and the random. The fact that some of the bad guys in it are bacteriophages. One other game has a bacteriophage as a bad guy, and it looks like one. It's actually that's what it is. I
think the 3 people who know what that were got really excited.
Yeah.
Well, I'm one of them. So
Blue Stinger is definitely a favorite. I actually have it in the North American, European, and Japanese release.
Oh my god.
Little bit of a Blue Stinger fan. I'm just trying to think Yeah, Fantasy Star Online was awesome for a little while. After a while, it was kind of like, eh. My wife and I played the crap out of that, though. I got to admit, we played that a ton.
It was addicting.
Local. Oh, it was. Especially anytime you saw that little red item box show up, and you're like, ah! Like almost fighting over it. I got the red box. You got the last one. And then you found out that it was something, and you go back to that jackass.
One of 4 items.
Yeah. He wasn't called the Cryptarch in that game, but he was basically the same thing as in Destiny. And you'd go back, and if you didn't like his answer, you'd spend the money, but you could say no and then keep going until you got something really good. So that was fun because he's like, oh, it's one of these. But amazingly, if you told him, no, it's not, he'd go, oh, it's not. Look, it's one of these. No, it's not. Oh, okay, it's a really awesome one of these. That is what it is. Yes, that's what it is. Then you take the really good item and off you go.
Power Stone?
And of course, Resident Evil Code Veronica was such an amazing game for its time. An excellent chapter. One of the last of the true Resident Evil games, in my opinion.
Yeah, you can really see, like, Resident Evil Code Veronica is, like, you can really see the evolution between, like, the older style and 4. Like, it was closer to the older style, but you could see how it was evolving.
It wasn't tank controls, though, was it? I don't think it was. Code Veronica. Was it? Oh, I guess it was, yeah.
And of course, the other thing is, Resident Evil 4 went through so many different changes. The original concept was that some dark fog would envelop Leon Kennedy and start giving him strange powers. And then that idea got scrapped, and then they had another idea that got scrapped, and then they eventually came up with this whole Eastern European village full of guys with heads full of parasites.
Which is how I imagine Europe, actually.
I'm pretty sure that's all of Europe.
Yeah,
I thought it was actually like a documentary more than a game. It was just trying to... It's like a learning game, like those Carmen Sandiego games.
You don't want to see what happens if you don't get the Queen's tea ready in time. She turned in something real goddamn nasty.
Oh my god! I can't. How have we not talked about the villain of Code Veronica? That is still... Was it Alex and Alexandria?
Yeah. Oh, dude!
Don't disappoint me by dying too early. No!
It didn't seem like a shocker to me at all. I was like, that's the same person.
No, it was more sort of like, dude, how come you're the only one that doesn't get that it's you?
Oh my god, what a funny villain!
Don't look at me, I'm too pretty. You something.
What was it? Ashford? The Ashford family name.
Yes.
Everything was about this awesome family.
Yeah. Well, he's the only person.
The Ashford family tree came down to one tiny little root.
We have Honey Boo Boo, right? I want to see their reality TV show.
The Ashford's reality show? Yeah. Oh, Kyle, oh my god, that's your next big project, okay?
That'd be so much fun.
You have to do the real world Code Veronica. And it's the house, but every single person in the house is another personality of Alex Ashford.
Starring Eddie Murphy, obviously, right?
Yeah, Eddie Murphy would be a must. He's already signed on.
Just getting in arguments and fighting with himself, bitch slapping himself, and then writing terrible things about himself on the internet.
Yeah, you can like sell it as like Fight Club 2. Basically the same thing, right?
I need to play that again just for that character because
it's so good. All the characters are terrible. Like I think Claire is really good, but Steve is just like, whoa, you're no zombie.
Yeah, he's like a surfer dude, wasn't he? Like,
he's a complete moron.
Oh, he was. He rubbed me the wrong way from the moment I saw him.
But, I shouldn't have given him all my guns. God damn that bastard.
There was one back in the day. I think it was Newgrounds. Like when they made That's Where You Saw videos. Was Newgrounds?
Yes, I remember this video that you're talking about.
The legendary frog one, I think it was.
Yeah. With oh god.
If anybody would be interested in Newground level material from 2002 or whatever that was.
I don't remember that one at all.
Look up the Code Veronica. I think it was Legendary Frog or something Frog.
Yeah.
Code Veronica, and I'm sure it's really terrible, but that was something that like I quoted for years.
I stand by it. It's still awesome. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it in 10 plus years, but it's still awesome.
Well, we're gonna watch it right after.
I'm gonna watch it right after. I'm gonna cry. Like, why did I endorse this?
One game which I forgot to mention, which is really good, and I'm sure I would be surprised if this wasn't on your list, Rob, was Power Stone.
Oh, dude, Power Stone was. John and I played that so intensely. When I had the Japanese Dreamcast, I left it with him for like a week, and I came back, and he was just the most ridiculously good. I should know better. I should know better than to do this, but and so it went from I was kicking his ass because I'd played it a bunch and he hadn't played it to now all of a sudden I just couldn't even get a hit in edgewise. But you know,
yeah. And I heard the second one was way better, but add that to the list of Dreamcast games I don't hope to ever buy.
I would argue that. Personally, I didn't like it as much. I didn't like the 4-player battles that took place on stages where things moved and you could just get dropped off the bottom. It was like cheap deaths to me. Mm-hmm. I didn't like a lot of the new characters. It didn't rub me the right way, but it just wasn't my cup of cat. It doesn't mean it was...
You're right. The original designs and Power Stone, and also just the feel of it. It just there's a certain mechanic that just felt off on 2. Although I do prefer 2 for some reason. I think it's because it had much more replayability. Like getting the items was incredibly fun. Like you remember that we had to combine different items in that shop, and then you'd create new items. I guess you guys didn't play that aspect of number 2.
I've never played 2.
Yeah, it's this incredible because there's over 100 items, I think, and you have to when you're fighting, you find these like cards or something that you trade in, and you combine as many of them as you can. If you trade in a bunch of rare things, and actually there's repeatable formulas and recipes where if you put in this and this, you definitely get this item. Sometimes it's a bit of a random element to it, but there's some insane items that like are incredibly hard to get in that game.
So is that is that one of your favorites then? We'll go into your favorites.
Oh yeah, I'd say Power Stone 2 for sure. For like just a party game, incredible. I like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and you know what? I like Skies of Arcadia. That
right.
Did you guys ever play that one?
I watched my brother play some of the GameCube version, which I mean, generally people. When it comes to ports, people are like, I need to play the original. But most people who I talk to say the GameCube one is easier a lot because, like, on the back of the GameCube one, I think it's called Legends, it says more wanted battles in quotation marks, which means we really lowered the random battles because people couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. So I do plan to play it one day, but I haven't. It looks really unique.
I would say do it on the director's cut or whatever, because there's also new battles and and stuff. It's really cool. It's an acquired taste that's at the start, but you get really into it. It's good storytelling. I would say also I really like, of course, Space Channel 5, and you know what? I think Typing of the Dead. Probably my stand-up pick besides It'll Bleed.
Yeah, that's really good.
Because it taught me typing, and who says you can't learn anything from a video game? This beats Mario Teaches Typing, like hands down.
Oh yeah.
It's Mario Teaches Typing for the 90s generation.
Except Mario made you type things that made sense, whereas the stuff they make you type in Typing of the Dead.
I'm really good at typing unicorn butt. Like that's my fastest. No, it's true. Like they make you type the weirdest things, and some of the words I don't think I've ever seen before in my life.
Yeah,
it really expanded your lexicon at times.
It did for sure.
That's a thing. Holy crap! I used to play Master Type on the VIC-20, so
probably no unicorn butts on that.
No.
No.
You had to invent your own fun back then. And, we liked it that way.
And you didn't have to suffer like G did.
No.
I would. As soon as you say G, that just takes me back to the House of the Dead with that stupid little bat-winged guy.
Yeah. There's so many ports. Dreamcast for me was like an arcade port machine of all the games I loved in arcades.
It was.
Yeah.
It was an arcade machine because the Naomi hardware was what they put in the console.
And I had like was it Mission, the spy shooting game, the light gun game? I miss light gun games. Actually,
Death Crimson?
No, it was like Confidential Mission.
Oh,
right. Confident. I had like all those light gun games because that was my jam. I just, for some reason, really like those games, and I really hope with Oculus Rift and motion controls, they'll bring back light gun games.
I want a Silent Hill game on the Oculus Rift just so I can scare the crap out of
No, you
myself.
don't. You don't want that.
Dude,
What is it?
if you put PT on there, like you would. Oh,
Instant death. I think you die instantly.
yeah.
I would be the happiest little bugger in the world. Oh,
Yeah, you might roll over. Like your misery would just go so high, you would just roll over to happiness.
You know what? You know what they need to port to Oculus Rift is DDR. And but could you imagine playing?
You could feel like you're actually at the club being snubbed by hot chicks instead of being snubbed by the one on the screen.
Well, yeah. Well, I was thinking about it, like, that'd be the best way to move around. Like, you got all these, like, hamster wheels and stuff. Like, how do you move in DR? DDR pad, just problem solved.
So Kyle, when was the last time you actually played a Dreamcast?
Oh, man.
Have you not played one since your loss?
I think the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, I played the Rival Schools game. I forget what it's called, but
Oh my God,
that's a really
Rival
cool
Schools
game.
United by Fate!
Yeah, that game was super cool.
It's another one John and I played the crap out of.
Yeah, I guess the pain was too much, and I started crying right there on the controller. And some attendant came by and he sanitized it really quickly, but while I was holding it, Surfster was really good.
You gotta track down this friend of yours, ex-girlfriend, and just...
We'll take care of it.
Oh, she sold it all by now. Apparently, she opened up some kind of. I don't know if I can reveal this information. Never mind. She did stuff with it.
She opened up a store?
Yeah, I think she opened up a rental store and rented out all of his stuff.
Oh my God, that's the saddest. Could you imagine going into that store
Hey.
not knowing and renting it and being like, "Hey, I recognize this copy."
I'm sorry. I'm with Marcellus Wallace on this one. I'm going to go get a pair of pliers and a blowtorch and get medieval on her ass.
I only want Illbleed. That's the only game I want. I want a Dreamcast and Illbleed. And
It's probably sitting on a pedestal that's lit up, like in her closet or something, because she knows.
Prized of possessions.
And with this one fell swoop, I tore out his heart and threw it to the ground. Except she doesn't realize it's the wrong person.
Yeah. The pain is real somewhere.
Well, I'll have to have you over, Kyle, because I do have a light gun and
What?
Death Crimson, OX, and
Interesting.
House of the Dead 2.
Yeah. I wish I had my light gun still. I had the good ones because there's several different ones. Some of them were crap.
Yeah, I have the Pelican. I don't know if
Yeah, I think that's the one. That's
Yeah.
good.
That's the good one.
the Pelican's pretty
Pelican,
sweet.
good. Mad Cat's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tip
I-
for all you people
Tip.
looking to buy some.
I have a factory sealed copy of Illbleed.
Oh, dude, leave in the seal. It's
Oh, I'm going to.
He just wants you to know you can never have
yeah.
it.
Thanks for that. That was
No, I'm just saying I've got one, but I still want to. If I find other copies, because I've run into them a few times, I'll keep that in mind and I'll put one aside for you. I'll get it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. There's so few of us that know about it.
Yeah, that's the thing that shocks me because I actually made an Illbleed video on YouTube.
Oh
And,
yeah,
And Rob's in it. Yeah, Rob's the lumberjack.
I totally forgot about that.
I love that game so much because it's actually made by the same guy who made Blue Stinger, and
Yes.
unfortunately he died of a heart attack, which is one of the ways you can die in Illbleed, which I always found kind of strange.
Was it? It wasn't the chair of Sega,
I
right?
kind-
Because
I
he
kind of-
died of a heart failure too. The chair of
There's
the
just
chair of
something about
Sega Enterprises or something.
Different guy, completely different guy.
Yeah.
But he was actually just starting development on Red Stinger when he died.
Oh really? Oh my
Yep.
god!
So
I like to think that he opened up his cabinet and something jumped out at him like an Illbleed. And it was a shock event. That's the only way I can make it light and but then the sadness comes.
Oh.
Yeah. So we could
wherever
just
he is, he's seen your video and thinks it's the best thing ever.
end on another sad note.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Let's end it here.
No, I think what we need to talk about is the fact that for all that the Dreamcast is a big nostalgia machine, honestly and truly, with the fan groups that are out there and with the people who are still developing games for this in Japan and in Germany and around the world, the retro gaming communities out there are still making stuff for it. It's well worth it. You should be able to find one, and it shouldn't cost too much either in a retro store or online. The Dreamcast has such a solid library that if you haven't got one and you haven't played one, you owe it to yourself to go out, pick one up, and just look through it. I mean, even things like Cannon Spike, which by the way had Mega Man in it.
Yeah, that's another great game.
Like all these amazing arcadey, actiony, fun, amazing, quirky games. Honestly, go out, find one, and play them. You really need to. You owe yourself that. And if you find Illbleed, play it, because one, you'll laugh yourself to death, and two, it is actually also quite scary. So enjoy.
Yeah. Look up how to play it though, because
and then look up Megasteakman's Megasteakman's Illbleed video, because it's awesome.
I need that 10th view on that video.
I account for at least 37. So
okay, so we're at least in the triple digits. That's great.
Yeah. I do have one. You just reminded me of something when he talked about Cannon Spike. This will be the last story, I swear. Was how I received most of my games. So like I said, I picked up a few games here and there. But then I remember where I used to live, Kijiji was huge for video game stuff. And there was one guy who wanted to sell. He's like, I have 200 Dreamcast games and 3 Dreamcasts and all this stuff. And he was like, I want to sell some stuff. Is anyone interested? So I contacted him. I was like, could you please not post that list and just give it to me, and I will buy your stuff? Because the resale community was huge. And I was like, you know what? Dude, you can come over and look at my shelf. I play these games. I don't want these games to go to reseller, because you know what? I know what's going to happen, because it happened to me before, where I wanted to buy something. A reseller bought it, and then they sold it to me for more. That's how I ended up getting my Saturn. But it was minty fresh, so I dealt with it. But I was like, you know what? Please just... And he's like, you know what? 10 people have contacted me and oh, how about $50 for that old crap? Knowing that they're resellers, right? So he's like, you know what? I can tell you actually want this stuff. I'll give you the list. You have first pick of everything.
Nice!
So I went through the games really quickly, and there's some in there that I should have gotten, but I didn't, regrettably. But you know what? I was in university. I did not have a crap load of money, and this was the most money I dropped on a bunch of games in probably my whole life, but I couldn't turn down some stuff. There was the Crazy Taxis, Choo Choo Rocket, Cannon Spike, which I think is a $50 game, Jet Grind Radio, a bunch of the Street Fighters, Virtua Tennis, Phantasy Star, Shadow Man, Daytona, Techromancer, all these amazing games. And I think I bought 40 of them for $150. So each game cost $350 or something.
Wow.
And 3 of those games, like I said, Cannon Spike is a $50-$60 game, I think. I mean, it might have changed since I last checked, but at the time it was. And he was perfectly fine just selling those to me, because he knew I was going to play them. And what happened actually is him and his friend, when the Dreamcast was tanking and everything was on sale, they basically bought everything. And they were really into the Dreamcast. And then his friend was like, well, I don't want to play these anymore. So he bought his collection. So that's why he had a ridiculous amount of games. And since then, I don't think I've bought... I think the only games I've bought have been Shenmue and Seaman. But that's probably my biggest, most amazing haul of video games. Because, like I said, I could pick 3 of those games out, and that's $150 right there. Mm-hmm. And I just got all these great games, and it was because this guy recognized that I was, actually someone who's passionate about the games and the Dreamcast and stuff. And I'm thankful. I think his name was Nick. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
I'm still playing your games.
You're the man.
And but to go back really quickly to what you said, buy a Dreamcast, and as much as probably at least Rob and myself are concerned, we love to buy physical, real copies of things, but you know what? You just need to play those games. You buy a Dreamcast, and you can burn all that crap, right? And if that's how you can play Illbleed or D2 or Sonic Adventure or Jet Grind Radio or any of those games, then just do it. No one's making any money off of them now. Don't do that with the indie games that are coming out, because that's just a dick move.
Yeah.
And, but if that's what it takes for you to experience that, drop the, I don't know, $40, $50 or whatever it costs for a Dreamcast, and get into the system, because there are so many weird, quirky, amazing things on there. and some things that you can't get anywhere else. And the Dreamcast as a whole has such a flavor to it. Like the library is quirky. You have tons of fighting games, arcade games, a lot of great shooting games. It has a lot of gaps as well, but it has such a distinct flavor that systems don't really have anymore. And it has an insane fan base for a reason. You know, it was like the first big leap into that gen. It has like all the crazy peripherals we mentioned, the VMU, and you know, as a whole, it was like Sega's last big hurrah. You know, like the Saturn was a miserable failure, and they knew it, and they knew we have to go all out. And I think they knew even from the get go that they were probably going to lose, but they gave it everything they got. It didn't peter out like some other companies. They ended with like, you know.
Funny you should use that term because the man who decided was Peter Moore. And
I was trying to end on a high note, Rob. I was trying to end on a high note.
Oh, you just said it didn't peter out, and it did peter out because Peter Moore removed it, but he didn't realize the mistake he made because it's such pure gold. It's so beautiful. Well, to be honest, I will put the Dreamcast up against consoles today and say that it's still a lot more fun and looks equally beautiful. Personal opinion.
A lot of stuff does hold
You'd be wrong, but...
What I more meant was,
it is as fun.
If you compare Sega as a console manufacturer to the other failed console manufacturers, none have gone out like Sega did. Like the Atari, you know, all the old systems from back in the day, like Magnavox and all that stuff, like they all petered out miserably. But the Dreamcast just like went out with fireworks, and it's still definitely worth getting into. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other final words you guys have about it.
It's still thinking.
It's still thinking.
It is. It's still thinking, where the hell are all my people that should be playing me right now?
I also want to say a big thank you to my two guests, Kial Megasteakman and Robman from Happy Console Gamer. You know, it's really difficult to throw these things together with adults that have real lives. And set aside, you know, a couple hours to just gush about something we love. So thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, and it was always good to catch up with you and Kyle. So, a real pleasure.
Yeah, it was a definite honor. Really good to talk with you guys.
All right, this has been Silver Mongoose Videos, and remember, classic gaming never gets old. But yeah. So, any questions about anything before we start?
Yeah, what's a Dreamcast?
Okay, so